Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for still being here. So I was the one to moderate the first panel today in the morning, and I'm the one to moderate the last one. I'm very privileged to be on this stage twice, and once again with a great set of speakers. We are going to talk about a particularly exciting topic of regulation and standardization. So I really hope that you are ready for this. Let's give a round of applause once again to our great panelists, Sudha, Gabi, and Ilya. Let's start with a quick round of introductions just to set the stage and give some context about the points of view that you guys are going to be talking about. Just talk a little bit about who you are, what your background is, what you've been doing in the past decade, let's say, in the financial realm. Sudha, starting with you.
I introduce myself as a mother cryptographer and speaker. That's the personal me. I also have a role which I get paid for, which is the head of Citi's enterprise cybersecurity architecture team. I'm passionate about the open standards community and then uplifting the standards so that it is good enough for everybody to use. I believe, and my organization also believes, that security should be easy for everybody to adopt and use. And in the same policy and philosophy, I also am the international cybersecurity expert at International Standards Organization. Anybody heard of ISO ever? Okay, so I'm a muck in that ocean. That's pretty much me. I think for the past 2 decades and a little bit more, I've been in cybersecurity architecture, and of which 1 decade goes to Citi. That's about
incredibly impressive. Thank you for being here, Gabi.
Thank you. I'm Gabi. I'm the VP of Security at Halborn. And I was in the Navy 10 years as an officer, and actually I was in a submarine for 4 years. Then I moved to cybersecurity, and I'm in charge of all the pen testing and auditing in the company. But recently, I decided to join this amazing world of the standardization too, and I'm the Spanish expert in the ISO for blockchain, and I'm also part of the one action group was recently created for mixing this ISO for blockchain and ISO for finance. So it's called digital currencies. So I'm part of that group, and I mean, I think we have to regulate the things in order to, to give this kind of trust to the users and to the enterprises and to the other business different from Web3 natives.
Great. Gabi, a very quick follow-up question. What are the things that you learned during your Navy career that you are using these days? Just very curious.
Yeah. So apart from the, for the evidence, like we can navigate in a submarine. I mean, it's not an easy way, but whenever someone asks me that, I said, the most important thing I learned is identify a problem. So when something is a problem, it's like you are gonna die, you are gonna pass away, everyone is gonna die. No, so it's not a problem. So the thing is, joke aside, is like trying to find out a solution. I mean, is the best learn I had, because it's like when you are in a submarine 300 meters depth, and there is a problem, so you have to react quickly, and you have to save your crew, and take the submarine to the surface as safe as possible. So, yeah.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much, Ilya.
Hi, my name is. Can you hear me? Yeah, my name is Ilya Brovin. I'm Chief Growth Officer at Sumsub. Our take at security and blockchain is slightly different. So we are probably the largest compliance services provider to, in particular, the blockchain industry, serving over 1,000 crypto clients. So we provide onboarding services, transaction monitoring services, some compliance services like travel rule, and in doing so, we kind of what we call securing the user journey, i.e. protecting our clients from fraudsters either at onboarding stage or further on later at the interaction stage. So that's what we do.
Right, and how big is the company?
It's about 500 people. It's
Oh.
it's been around for 9 years, so serving over 2,000 clients globally, from the largest centralized exchanges to lots of small wallets.
That's quite impressive. And you're based in London?
I am.
Great. So, Sudha, I wanted to get back to you and start a conversation with a more general, let's say, question. If you had to name top 3 challenges for building and scaling, let's say, secure DLT platforms in financial institutions, what would there be?
Yeah, so this is a very good and broad question, but and there are several layers to it. So I'll try to be answering in brief. So the first thing is definitely the regulatory structures. We need clarity about. I mean, the industry needs clarity about how the regulatory structures are going to be blending with the infrastructures. Then the second important challenge is. Currently, we are prioritizing based on emerging technologies. So prioritization of investments is saying that, okay, this pool goes for investment of emerging technology. Instead, if there were prioritization based on what are the critical infrastructure assets, like there are these digital asset wallets that protect the digital assets. There are these protocols, the new protocols like Dev P2P, Lib P2P, gRPC. Do we have adequate infrastructure to support the protection of these protocols? And then the providers themselves, like the liquidity providers, the scanning providers. We had so many great Elliptic and other TRM labs, Chainalysis, et cetera. So we need those security to be prioritized. Unless we create the demand, there would not be the supply. The vendors will not be interested in building those solutions, and then you cannot prioritize. The last one is building the proper security frameworks for open source tools, because they are a challenge of themselves. So I think those are the 3 critical challenges that needs to be addressed.
Great. Thank you. And while we're on the challenge question, Gabi, for example, if you were to compare challenges within the security of decentralized financial systems, how would you compare them to those that can be seen in traditional centralized systems? So, like, what's the difference in security challenges between the two?
Yeah, so if you ask me that question, like 3 things in order to, the challenges, I would say security, security, and security. This is so in centralized.
Very unbiased answer from you, absolutely.
Yeah. So as Steve, my CTO, this morning mentioned, it was like in the Satoshi paper, you can read like a decentralized system is untrusted per se, and the only way to do it is like to trust honesty of the nodes and cryptography. So in centralized system, it's easy because it's like you can ensure users like the honesty is per se because you are the honesty. You are the only node for trusted. No, so the security of the user here is extremely important because in a decentralized system, yeah, I usually compare this with, imagine you are in the street and someone asks you for money and say, please give me $5,000. I say, take it. So if you don't use the security in the centralized system, it's pretty much that. And many people, they still trust in these centralized systems. So in centralized system, it's easier to control, for example, the security of the nodes, or for example, the consensus mechanism. If you go to, it's tricky because, I mean, this attack, all of you know, is this 51% attack. So in proof of stake or other consensus mechanisms, so it's problematic in the centralized system, but you think you are controlling this in centralized one, but the problem is if the keys are compromised, so you have the huge problem there. So sometimes, yeah, it's for that, it's not is honesty of the nodes and cryptography. You have to follow this, because if not, you tend to centralize the system, and at the end you centralize, and you arrive to a single point of failure. So that's the problem decentralized network try to solve, but sometimes it's not.
That's a very good answer. Do not centralize what is decentralized. Very
Yeah,
well.
but it's not true really, because if you right now shut down any kind of cloud provider, maybe not only internet, but also all the market in crypto, maybe the miners for Bitcoin, they can, and it's going to be a collapse if you shut down AWS or Google platform or something. So what is decentralized in reality?
Okay, that's a very good point. Thank you, Ilya. And then if we think about the regulatory frameworks that exist right now, and how do you see the bridging between these frameworks and the actual technology advantages that DLT and blockchain technology has? How does it work? Is it actually working at all?
Well, just listen to this. What I say is because of the decentralization, right, and because lack of the central authority, blockchain and decentralized finance attracts the huge part of fraud that's happening out there. And we see this, so compared to, many players in our space, we through our clients see a lion's share of fraud coming in there. And it's actually being able to, we need to be able to fight it, find out those patterns, and the fraud is always, they're half a step ahead of you because they are coming up with things that you then need to protect against. So in terms of regulation, then regulation is usually one step behind, right? Because it first sees the problems that are happening and then comes up with rules. So unfortunately, there's not much you can do about it. Obviously, the different parts of the ecosystem need to work together, the regulators, the industry, the standard setting bodies, and kind of work together to try to, I think, both protect and ensure that the system itself works in a secure way, but also protect against the behavior of the bad actors around the system trying to attack it.
And do you how would you talk about your own work with the regulators? Are you trying to sort of further this collaboration?
Most of the work that we're engaged with regulators, I would say it's a little bit more around compliance than security, because they're usually, for them, they say these are the rules and you need to comply with them. Like whatever it is you do, like that's your problem. So they don't usually kind of delve into what actually needs to be done and how you achieve it. But part of the problem is that a lot of the way regulators think about this is coming from the centralized world, and a lot of the tools and the requirements that they are putting out there are difficult to apply one for one. And I'll give an example. There's this product or a requirement called Travel Rule, which is effectively SWIFT for crypto. And SWIFT and the whole idea of pre-transaction messaging was developed for a centralized financial system, and when everybody is mandated to use one sort of messaging platform. And now they've mandated this for a completely decentralized system where blockchain and crypto players are actually not operating on the basis of any centralized license. And how do you kind of marry this? Now the whole world, and in particular EU right now, with the introduction of TFR through MiCA at the end of this year, are sort of struggling with how do you actually fulfill those regulatory requirements when the whole system architecture is completely upside down.
Right. Thank you so much for this example. It makes a lot of sense. Now, Sudha, I wanted to turn back to you to talk a little bit about tokenization, because I saw that there was this recent Future of Finance report from Citi, and it mentioned that almost everything can be tokenized, and I quote him from there. So can you give some insights about it? What does it mean from Citi's standpoint?
For those who aren't aware, Citi runs a specific group which is disjoint from the whole organization, but it runs a full-fledged research of the industry and market level analysis, and they are called as Citi GPS, and they they have systematically analyzed and conducted interviews across different users and vendors, as well as venture partners, and all the digital assets and custody and other financial markets business across the financial market. And then what they have suggested in terms of resilience and interoperability, as well as reconciliation problem that blockchain can resolve, is that they predict that the resilience can be improved by 2 to 3-fold. But then if you read the paper, you'll get more insights. And then the way the paper also presents the state is such that they are also comparing the futuristic versions of what is going to come with AI, as well as the convergence of blockchain and AI and the mobile technology together, as well as the gaming. So it's very interesting. So I would really suggest you read that paper. And it, if you are interested in per use case, it also will benefit you as to how the use case looks like in the future, and how it can be beneficial. So that's what it's saying, that everything that you consider as an asset can be tokenized.
Perfect. That's a great work that you're doing. Were you involved in this report as well?
No.
Right.
This is conducted across the industry. It's not a city's perspective. It is non-city perspective.
Okay, brilliant. I understand now. Now, Gabi, would you like to talk about AI? Let's talk. I mean, everybody talks about AI, so I thought we should also do that. So, what would be your take on? What's that? What would be your take on what actually AI and machine learning? How can it be leveraged, in your opinion, to detect and prevent fraud within decentralized financial systems?
Yeah, so let's go from more optimistic to less optimistic. So if you start, I think AI is super useful for anti-money laundering things. I mean, companies like Chainalysis, they are doing a great job with these AML bots, checking all transactions and so on. But there is still a path in order to being able to monitor transactions in real time. This is a big challenge. And another one could be the compliance. I mean, being able to, and this is, I mean, everyone is trying to use it, this kind of automatic KYC, and in some platforms, it's working really well. But I think the most, the most unrealistic thing could be the smart contract audits. I saw thousands of papers, thousands of projects, and at the end, the only results they are giving is just low-hanging fruits or major issues can be catched by an auditor like in some minutes. So I think this could be really helpful, and is not going to replace any kind of auditing company, because some of that behaviors, I think AI will never be able in a midterm to catch it. But this could be really useful in order to, if you change some line of codes or something, to catch it quickly in order to be safe until you can make a major change and you request another audit.
You also have loads of machine learning in your products, right?
Absolutely, and we see AI being used from both sides. So the fraudsters use AI, and like the last year, the deepfakes, buyout statistics like 10-fold increase, right? And the only way you catch it is with AI as well. So you have to train your AI to catch AI-generated deepfakes and all other types of fraud, but also see patterns. So when we do transaction monitoring, fraud network analysis, you need to piece together seemingly unconnected data. Because otherwise, if it's just one verification after another, you're not going to be able to get it.
It's like, I usually say like an audit of the smart contracts or any other thing is like 90% methodology and 10% creativity. So in the 90%, I mean, one of the objectives for a company is trying to reduce this creativity thing until the minimum. But surprisingly, the coolest vulnerabilities and the most difficult ones, the most critical ones are discovered by that creativity. And nowadays, even if you train the I mean, I think it's almost really optimistic thinking about to catch it in a...
And it's always a hybrid. I think you need a human, a trained human, but also aided by technology, and that combination is much more potent. It's not never one or the other.
Yeah.
And would you say that the the development of generative AI has changed the game a lot, or would it have been the same without?
In our space, as I said, yes, the deepfakes and presentation attacks, when people are very, very much on the rise, with the ease of creating them for the environments and the difficulty of catching them. So for sure, yeah.
Gabi?
Yeah, but don't forget, it's like if you apply AI and so on, new attack vectors will raise, and new vulnerabilities came from the AI. So at the end, as you mentioned, it's like this generative AI and multimodal, which is like the last trend. This is gonna change like everything, but I don't see that in a super short term.
Right. So we're gonna keep an eye on that. So I want to talk about some serious work that you're doing. I mean the ISO work, the smart contract security standardization work that you are doing within the standards organization. So can you share a little bit about what it is exactly that you're doing? How does it transpire?
Yeah, sure. How many of you know anything about standards or standard writing here? Okay.
One hand, two hand, three,
Okay.
4, 5. Yeah.
But in the interest of the other people who are not writing standards, so standardization, when we are talking about industry level standardization, and as a technical lead for the smart contracts, I'd like to simplify what standardization means first. So there are open standards, and they are built like open source, in the same format as open source, and they can be modified as a public, fork out, check-in, and then they are called as request for comments, RFCs. So the usual bodies are International Engineering Task Force, who own these kind of standards, and the changes to the standard ends when the contribution ends. So the final version would be whichever did not have a new edit to it. Whereas in international open standards, which was like ISO and ANSIs and the other bodies, what happens is it's very close to how we deal with your decentralization of the DLT area as well, wherein you have the consensus. So all the there is a consensus between all the different countries' experts, but then in case of international standards organization, the consensus is with the selected parties, and in case of the open standards, it was just public blockchain kind of a scenario. So the consensus in international standards can be related to the permission blockchain, wherein you have few people, few actors who can perform the validation on the network and then add the consensus to the network. And in case of public one, it is like so. So as an international expert, just like Gabi, but then as a project lead, I initiated a paper and using a special technique, and then we were able to identify the baseline state where we are in terms of the smart contract security. And we had number of challenges because there are number of protocols, there are number of languages, and then there were a number of platforms itself, and then creating a standard for practically everything was an enormous effort. And what we identified is, even though there were these dissimilarities in each of them, there were a little bit of similarities in terms of the approach and how you want to resolve. And then we also identified that a lot of things are focused only at the SDLC, and the validation, like Halborn has written the validation scoring systems, there were very less trustable vulnerability scoring mechanisms like such. So those things were captured, and then we did identify a few of the SAST, DAST. Anybody is aware of these acronyms, SAST, DAST? It's like static analysis, DAST is dynamic analysis of the code itself. And we also demystified a lot of myth, like people were having myths like consensus only were because of blockchain. Consensus was implemented way before blockchain was brought to the net. Consensus happens in your content distribution networks, your firewalls, your gateways. Paxos is the type of consensus that happens wherein you want to replicate the data among the network. And then there is the new protocols that we would want to prioritize that I was talking about earlier. There is no security as such for these new protocols which has come into the market, like DevP2P, libP2P, gRPC. So you need perimeter security platforms to support them. How do you prioritize or influence the current perimeter security tool vendors to implement that? So we did capture that. We did capture a few more aspects, but then these were the key highlights along with the other open source specific terms. When I talk about the vulnerability scoring system, we did identify one of the smart contract specific vulnerability scoring method as well. And then when we looked at industry standard leaders who are contributing to the community via these open source or available self-scoring methods, that is really powerful for being connected into the open standards, because what is happening is then everybody gets on the same level of understanding of where do they stand in terms of self-identifying where they are vulnerable at. And it could be their own decision of risk appetite, right? And once they decide that and self-score themselves, then they can take informed decisions where they want to invest, where they want to take their design next. So that is, I think, some of the powerful things that came out, and it was well received across the consensus again.
So what stage are you at right now? So is it a standard that's already there, or is it going to be released?
So it started with a research. It's called as a PWI, which is like a working item towards standardization. So we generated a report, and the plenary was just this week. I still am the lead of that particular effort, and Gabi has supported me in putting those vulnerability scoring system.
Right.
So we did create a paper which has been published just within that group, and once that is finalized, we'll be creating a technical specification, and it will take time, but then we did identify the baseline state of everything, so we can build on top of it.
Brilliant. Okay, so we almost have no time left in this panel, but I really wanted to also ask the panelists to give something to leave the audience with. So for some sort of advice, what would you say, what would be the best practices for an organization building a DLT system to align with the current and upcoming international standards and regulatory requirements? What would be like main things that that they should be doing?
In my opinion, the first one is working from the security. I'm from the beginning.
Hire a security person.
Yeah, because I think cybersecurity people, we have the responsibility to to implement the security in the new systems and in the new regulatory thing. So, and these companies, they want to be involved in DLT. They want to be advised from the beginning in the security side, and also they have to follow the compliance and all the standards we are working, because I mean we are responsible on implementing security also in the standards. So it's something is coming. So it's like we have to provide the security part, and also trying to be these companies want to provide this DLT system. They have to follow the thing I said at the beginning. Try to don't centralize everything, and we have systems now. We have as Fireblocks, they have these systems to protect the keys and so on, and try to be as decentralized as possible, and then using cryptography because it's so powerful in order to protect the system and the users.
Great, thank you so much. Ilya?
Well, again, coming from the perspective that we see, i.e. when from the side of users attacking, or like malicious users attacking the systems, I'd say, just kind of realize that the multitude of tools that they have is sort of unlimited, and therefore you have to employ a kind of many layers of security mechanism or like control mechanisms to try to catch them. So that means both at onboarding as well as throughout their interaction, employ multiple tools, transaction monitoring, fraud analysis, network analysis, detection. So to catch them at any point of stage, but assume that, you might have points of failure throughout the whole interaction.
After everything you've seen during your work, do you still trust people, Ilya?
Well, look, I mean, there are good people, bad people, but majority do well, but we need to protect against the minority that doesn't, for the benefit of the majority. So yeah, I'm an optimist in that case.
Brilliant. Good, anything to add?
I am.
I think I would like to quote Peter Drucker's statement that only 3 things happen naturally in organizations: friction, confusion, underperformance. For everything else, you need security and standardization. No, he didn't say that. He said, for everything else, you need leadership. So you need 3 of them, I would say.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Once again, let's give a big round of applause to this great panel. Thank you very much for staying with us.